A homopredator prelate, rehabilitated by Pope Francis, assisted a homopredator priest exiled by Francis. Bringing us this dispatch, our Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, this priest, who Pope Francis censored, and severely so, has just died, and the order he founded is actually praising him?
Brad, Father Carlos Miguel Buela died on Sunday in Genoa. He was a very powerful Argentinian priest, and he founded the Institute of the Incarnate Word, a religious congregation that operates in 44 countries with 3,000 members, priests, religious brothers and sisters, and laity. And this is an ultra-conservative Catholic congregation.
Okay, and Buela, how was he always praying with members of the congregation, or was he preying on members of the congregation?
Well, sadly, it's the latter. We know now that the Vatican found him guilty after victims' whistle blew. There were around 450 seminarians in the seminary that he founded in Argentina, and one of them finally had the courage to come forward after he, saw what Buela was doing, and more importantly, after he recognized Buela's relationship with another cardinal, another arch-homopredator cardinal that we're going to talk about in a moment. But the Vatican brought down the hammer heavily on him in 2009 under Pope Benedict, and forbade him from talking to members of his order or having anything to do with the order. But Buela disobeyed it, flagrantly violating Vatican restrictions, and went on to have contact with his order until Pope Francis personally banished him to a monastery in Spain.
Okay, but now Buela founded the order in Argentina, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so before becoming Pope, Francis was a cardinal down in Buenos Aires. Can you explain to our viewers what the relationship with then Cardinal Jorge Bergoglio was with Buela's order down there in Argentina during those years?
Absolutely. Cardinal Bergoglio was Cardinal Primate of Argentina. And like many other bishops, he was very suspicious of what was going on in this congregation. As a result, he imposed severe sanctions on the order and refused to ordain any of the seminarians coming from that order for at least 3 years. The congregation was always portraying itself as, militantly Catholic, almost, as I said, ultra-conservative, and willing to reach out as missionaries to the furthest ends of the earth, where no other Catholic missionary would go. In fact, that is why, they won the respect of many people, and they attracted many young men and women into the order. Incidentally, they even take a fourth vow, a vow of Marian slavery, of slavery to the Blessed Virgin Mary, in addition to the vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, just to show you how ultra-conservative they are.
Okay, so you mentioned that as Cardinal, Jorge Bergoglio down in Argentina was tough on Buela's order, and that Benedict also found the order to be, and Buela himself to be problematic. Can you dial in exactly for our viewers exactly what Pope Francis himself, the action that he took once he became Pope against Buela?
Well, he affirmed all 3 of Benedict's sentences against Buela, because by this time the Vatican Congregation for the Clergy had found that Buela had, abused over 20 seminarians. As I said, there were 450 seminarians. Half of them, including a number of priests, left after being abused, half of the 450. So people on the ground say that many, many more seminarians may have been abused, but there's just no way you can prove that. And Pope Francis did come down very hard on this, and he banished Buela, exiled him to a monastery in Spain. But Buela managed to get out, and Cardinal Angelo Bagnasco, who was then Cardinal of Genoa, gave Buela refuge in a church, almost in a kind of what the Italian press are calling an armored apartment, bulletproof apartment kind of thing in Genoa. And that is where he died in the hospital in Genoa in Italy.
And that was on Sunday that he passed, you said?
That was on Sunday, absolutely. Following which, of course, the order is singing his praises. And the big story here, Brad, is unlike other orders whose founders have been credibly accused and convicted of sex abuse, this order is saying absolutely nothing about the sexual crimes of their founder on their multiple websites in at least 8 languages. On the contrary, they have issued statements praising him to the skies, commending him as almost a saint. And the responses of his fans on social media basically are saying, well, he's already in heaven. He's got the crown of glory. Father Carlos Buela, pray for us, intercede for us from heaven.
Well, up until now, this seems quite favorable to Pope Francis as well, as his cardinal and then as Pope. There's another wrinkle to this story, and you alluded to it earlier, Jules, with regard to that seminarian. One of the things that opened his eyes was a relationship with Buela and the homopredator prelate, now defrocked, Theodore McCarrick, who's up on criminal charges now in Massachusetts and in Wisconsin, along with civil suits till the cows come home. What was McCarrick's relationship with Buela for all those years?
This is going to blow your mind, Brad. McCarrick donated is the wrong word, secretly funneled $1 million over from 2004 to 2017 to Buela and his religious order. Now, this was the highest amount of cash McCarrick gave to anybody. He gave around $600,000 in all to 2 popes, to papal advisors, to bureaucrats in the Vatican and other people in Rome. But he gave $1 million to the Institute of the Incarnate Word and to Buela. Now, in addition to that, McCarrick ordained a number of the Institute's priests and deacons. And after his retirement, he actually lived in their seminary in Maryland, the Venerable Fulton J. Sheen Seminary. And he was given an apartment there. He had a priest from the order as his secretary. He had 2 seminarians, and they say that he made very significant demands on them. Thank God, not sexual demands, but all sorts of other demands. They were virtually his slaves. Yes, McCarrick's slaves. Okay,
now, you mentioned that money was being funneled to Buela, his community, and other high-ranking officials as hush money and this. That all the way up through 2017, correct?
Correct. And if I may add very quickly, some of this money may have gone to influence people who were obviously, even the McCarrick report says this, who were assessing McCarrick's own sexual crimes. But also, McCarrick tried to put pressure on Vatican officials to give Buela a pass, and money went in that direction as well.
Okay, and just to before we move on with the question here, how it relates to Pope Francis, Buela did his name itself came up in the McCarrick report in 2020, correct?
Yes. So the Vatican the report has acknowledged extensively the links, close links between Buela and McCarrick, 2 pages in all. And also they have acknowledged that he received sums of money, that he stayed at the order seminary in Maryland, etc., etc. So it's worth reading that.
Okay, so now the fair and balanced reporting. Francis himself rehabilitated McCarrick in 2013 in the face of a thick dossier residing with the Congregation of Bishops that minutely detailed McCarrick's decades of homopredation. What responsibility then would Pope Francis, who touts zero tolerance, and Buela, who comes up in the report, and McCarrick giving him money, the McCarrick report, all the way to 2017. In 2013, Francis himself rehabilitated McCarrick in the face of all of that information in the dossier, that all he had to do was call across the street and say, hey, can you bring that dossier over and put it on my desk? I need to look through this on McCarrick. McCarrick, he rehabilitates in 2013, who goes on to continue funding hush money to Buela's, the high-ranking officials in the Vatican. Can you help our viewers understand that dynamic?
Absolutely, Brad, because that is one area objective observers of Pope Francis will tell you where he has blotted his copybook. I mean, apart from rehabilitating other sexual abusers like Bishop Gustavo Zanqueta, again, another abuser of seminarians, Francis has certainly, blown this up big time. And even the McCarrick report, some would say, was a kind of whitewash in a sense, because it did not fully demonstrate Francis's own complicity in rehabilitating McCarrick. And that is where we continually talk about mixed signals coming from the Vatican. Yes, Francis has commendably brought the sledgehammer, in fact, on a number of sexual abusers. In fact, very recently, quite a few of them. But then he's given the pass to people like, McCarrick and Zanqueta, etc., until things became really too bad.
Okay, we're going to be out of time here in a minute, but just this idea that the community is praising Buela. They had this nostalgic view of him and his whole take on things. Is he the only charismatic celebrity priest founder of a religious order who turned out to actually be abusing members of the community that he founded?
Sadly, Brad, this is now getting to be a very disturbing pattern, because you have Marcial, who abused about 6 seminarians, had 6 children through a number of women, and then abused a couple of those children themselves. Again, Pope John Paul did not act quickly enough against him. Very recently, we did a couple of stories on Jean Vanier, the founder of the Large Community, who abused over 25 women, all of them adults. Then we have Rupnik, Marco Ivan Rupnik, another close friend of Pope Francis, who co-founded a community and then abused around 25 nuns. 2 months ago, we did a story on Father Marie-Dominique Philippe, who, along with his brother Thomas, founded the Order of Brothers and Sisters of St. John, and again abused many women and men there. But the Brothers of St. John have come out with a statement condemning him and demonstrating repentance for what has happened and solidarity and support for the victims. It's tragic that Buela's order, the Institute of the Incarnate Word, despite all their claims to traditionalism and ultra-conservative Catholicism, have not had the courage to do something similar.
Well, as you say, it is another case, when you get into it, a mixed bag coming from Rome, where zero tolerance isn't always zero. We'd ask our viewers, though, to pray for Buela, the repose of his soul, for the members of his community that have been so misled, and the victims, his victims, who've actually not only left the priesthood, some of them left the church, and also pray that a consistent message may soon be coming from the Vatican on a regular basis. Thank you, Jules, for bringing this story into focus for us.
Thank you, Brad.